And if you've just joined us, this is ABC News 24's coverage of the state reception at Government House, Perth, for Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II and Prince Philip, the Duke of Edinburgh. And at the moment, the Western Australian Premier, Colin Barnett, is presenting to the royal couple, excuse me, a book of botanical drawings of flowers on the eastern goldfields of WA, which I guess is around Kalgoorlie, around that part of that enormous state. And joining me here in the studio is Professor David Flint. Professor, you know a little about WA. The eastern goldfields, I presume, denotes Kalgoorlie?
Yes, I have been there. It's an enormous state, as you rightly say. I think it was the right place, Western Australia, to hold this Chogga meeting. I dissent from the view which was in the Australian the other day that it's too far away and people won't come on to Sydney. So what?
I look forward to asking you more about Chogga a little later. And after this, in the ceremony, Her Majesty is going to be presented with a couple of bouquets of Western Australian flowers, so she'll have the drawings that she and the Prince can enjoy on their way back to London. They leave Perth for London on Saturday. And she'll have a few of the real things presented by a couple of children of courage, children who have been selected because they won Children's Week awards for their extraordinary courage shown, particularly considered their young years. One, Clara Lipscomb, in saving her aunt after a horse riding accident, and the young man, Ewan Rainey, although as he was referred to there, Master Ewan Rainey, who at 10 years of age saved his mum's life when she fell into a swimming pool, having suffered a medical incident, and he got her out of the swimming pool and saved her life. So in a moment we'll be seeing the presentation of those posies to Her Majesty by those two extraordinary young Western Australians. In one of your books, as we watch the crowd there, Professor Flint, one of your books was called Her Majesty at 80, Impeccable Service in an Indispensable Office. What adjectives would you apply to Her Majesty in light of this tour?
I think highly successful and greatly acknowledged, I think, by the majority of people in Australia. Republicans or monarchists and people in the middle who couldn't care less. I think everybody seems to sense the fact that the Queen is above politics, that she's guided by a sense of service which she's had from before she was 21, before she delivered that famous speech. And I think there's a general feeling that she is quite remarkable in this regard, and people like that.
Well, we're seeing pictures here coming in live from Perth, from the gardens of Government House in Perth. And I believe our reporter Andrew O'Connor is on the line, and he's not quite in there amid the throng. He's just outside the gates. They've left him outside. Andrew, you there on the line?
I am indeed, just peering through the fence at this stage. Not one of the privileged guests that have lined up inside, but I've got a view of sorts.
So near yet so far. Andrew, it looks like there are several hundred there. Do you have the numbers, and how broad is the slice of life of Perth and WA life that is represented in there?
Well, look, I would suggest that the crowd is something upwards of 1,500. When I arrived here at 4 o'clock local time, the queue, for people who aren't accustomed to being in a queue, I might say, stretched an entire city block. And it took some quick footwork on the part of the police to move that queue of dignitaries, public figures, sporting figures, people from right across the West Australian community. There were politicians, state and federal, business leaders, leaders of the arts, to get them all inside to see the opening of this state reception. So it's a very big representation of the top echelon of West Australian society here. In fact, I think you'd probably have to go to a Melbourne Cup day to see more women in finery and hats.
And Andrew, I guess for many Western Australians, albeit these folks are the representatives of the broader population of WA, but this is their first real opportunity to get close to Her Majesty, because there haven't been many opportunities so far since her arrival in Perth.
No, as we spoke yesterday, the 300 people or so that greeted her warmly at the airport barely got a glimpse as she stepped off the plane about 200 metres away. They were kept behind very high fences. This morning out at Clontarf, there were about 500 onlookers outside the college who were able to get a good look at the Queen as she drove both in and out. And today there's sort of a handful of people around the 3.2 hectare garden grounds here, who are taking a look. Some of them are looking through binoculars, others are taking pictures with their mobile phones. But again, I think they're taking, the people that are very keen, Scott, are taking every opportunity they can to get a quick glimpse.
Andrew, what you're mentioning there with that folks keen to get a quick glimpse, more broadly, what has been the reaction to the royal couple's tour of WA, the level of interest?
Well, certainly at a government level, this has been a much anticipated event. I think that Colin Barnett, as we heard, said that he was very, very proud of Western Australia, and the times that I've spent him in the last few days, he seems almost bursting with that pride at the accomplishment of both attracting CHOGM to Western Australia, but attracting with it a royal visit of this stature. I think everybody I've spoken to who has come along to each of the occasions so far is speaking very highly and warmly of the Queen. I think Dr. Flint makes a very good point that whatever people's personal view about a republic or a monarchy, even if they're supportive of a republic, they don't seem to be anti-monarchy. And they seem to be very kindly and warmly disposed to the Queen because of the way that she has conducted herself over her very long reign.
And Andrew, perhaps fittingly for Her Majesty being in a state of great contrast, her visit from here on in is one of great contrast from where she fulfills the formal role of as head of the Commonwealth with the opening of CHOGM and then attending a quintessential Great Aussie Barbecue.
Well, that is probably the most keenly anticipated public event by the broader West Australian community. That is going to be held on Saturday morning, where the Queen will spend some 45 minutes mingling with the crowd, moving between these barbecues. They're talking about a crowd of anything up to 100,000 people on that morning. And the weather, as we know, yesterday was very bleak, but it has cleared up today, and the forecast for the weekend, is that the weather should be glorious. So she could anticipate, I think, a very strong, warm turnout from West Australians on Saturday morning.
And has it been forecast, will Her Majesty actually be eating an Aussie snag? Or a beer, enjoying a beer even?
Well, apparently one of the barbecues is being put on by some of our best chefs, and it will have some of our finest meat on offer. Now, whether that will be confined to sausages or not, and whether Her Majesty will actually take a sample, I suspect she probably will, but it'll be something very specially prepared just for her taste.
I'm sure that will tempt the royal palate. Andrew O'Connor, always terrific speaking with you. Thank you for speaking with us outside.